Have you ever stopped to wonder why so many women today choose solitude? Not from a lack of love, but from a thirst for something greater? It's not loneliness, it's courage. Society still whispers that a woman alone is incomplete, but what if she is in fact more whole than ever? Carl Jung, the great explorer of the soul, saw solitude as a mirror. In it, the woman doesn't find emptiness, but pieces of herself the world made her forget. It's not about fleeing from men, but about finding the sacred masculine within. Her strength, her resolve, her voice. For centuries, women were told their worth lay in caring, in belonging to someone. But what happens when she realizes she's already enough? That true freedom begins when she stops looking outside for what has always been inside. Solitude, then, stops being loneliness. It becomes a ritual, a sacred time when she is not a wife, not a mother, not a caretaker. She is simply herself, unmasked. And you? Have you ever felt that sometimes it's in the silence that we finally hear ourselves? The encounter with the sacred masculine within her. Carl Jung revealed something many women feel but few can name. Within each one resides a dormant masculine force, the Animus. It's not about rejecting men, but about awakening what has been projected onto them: courage, logic, authority. When a woman lives alone, this archetype cries out to be heard. The shadow also emerges. Hidden fears, internalized judgments. You're selfish, you'll end up alone. But Jung teaches, it is in confronting these inner monsters that true freedom is born. To integrate the shadow is not to erase doubts, but to stop being a prisoner. To them, individuation, this journey toward wholeness, is not a straight path. It spirals. Some days she feels invincible. On others, society's echoes make her tremble. But each step is sacred because it brings her closer to herself. And the most curious thing? The more she embraces this inner masculine, the more her femininity blooms. Receptivity becomes a choice, not an obligation. Vulnerability, a strength, not a weakness. In the silence of solitude, she discovers she was never really looking for a man. She was looking for herself in all her fullness. And that, Jung would say, is the greatest revolution possible. The invisible burden she carried for centuries. For generations, women were told their value was found in others, in the children they raised, the husbands they supported, the homes they maintained. Their identity was a reflection, never a source. A woman alone. She was seen as a mistake, a problem to be fixed. But something profound happened. Women began to see the deception. They discovered they could be the center of their own stories, not just supporting characters in someone else's life. Independence stopped being a sin and became an act of courage. The numbers tell the story. More degrees, more careers, more households led by a single female signature. Not by chance, but by choice. The world changed, and with it, the possibility to write a new script, where alone doesn't mean incomplete, but author. Behind this transformation lies an ancestral pain. How many grandmothers and great-grandmothers suppressed their desires to fit the mold? How many dreams were buried beneath others' expectations? The modern woman carries this memory in her cells, and it is this very awareness that propels her to break the chains. Today, when a woman chooses solitude, she is not just changing her present. She is honoring all those who came before her and could not do the same. She is writing each day a new chapter in this ancient story, the desert that reveals inner oases. At first, the silence is frightening. The absence of other voices leaves room for her own demons to echo. "You won't make it," they whisper. "This isn't a life," they insist, but here's the secret. These fears are portals, not walls. Solitude requires daily courage. not the courage of heroes, but of lighthouses, standing firm as the waves crash. Each night faced without fleeing to empty relationships is a victory. Each morning she wakes and is enough for herself is a silent revolution. The rewards don't arrive with fireworks. They come quietly. In the moment, she realizes she no longer needs others' approval to feel whole. When she discovers her own, company is enough and even desirable. External judgments lose power when faced with a greater truth. No one knows her limits better than she does. What others call loneliness, she learns to call freedom. What they saw as emptiness reveals itself as the most fertile ground for self-discovery. In the end, the greatest realization isn't that she can live alone, but that for the first time, she is truly alive. Each step on this journey is a return home, to the center of herself, where lives a strength no external relationship could ever replace. The goddesses who chose the solitary path. Since ancient times, mythology has told us stories of women who transformed solitude into power. Artemis, the lunar huntress, preferred wild forests over royal palaces. The priestesses of Delphi sought truth in sacred isolation. They knew solitude is not exile, but temple. These archetypal figures reveal an ancestral pattern. When a woman retreats, she's not running away. She's answering a deeper inner call. Baba Yaga, the wise old woman of Slavic forests, teaches Eat us. The house that spins on chicken legs symbolizes precisely this ability to move between worlds without settling in any. Virginia Woolf captured this essence when she wrote about a room of one's own. It wasn't just four walls, but a psychic space where creation could bloom away from others' expectations. The same room many would see as a prison, she saw as a sanctuary. These stories echo today. The executive who rediscovers her intuition, the artist who finds her voice, the caregiver who finally allows herself to be cared for, they all follow in the footsteps of these ancestral women. The wisdom of these archetypes reminds us, when a woman chooses to be alone, she is not turning her back on the world. She is following a sacred tradition as old as humanity itself, the journey toward her own center, where her purest truth resides. The stories no one tells, but every woman recognizes. She was the woman everyone thought had it all, until the day she realized she didn't have herself. The successful executive who, amidst endless meetings, discovered her intuition was buried beneath piles of reports. It was in the silence of an empty apartment that she found her voice again. There's also the artist who spent years creating to please critics until a period of solitude revealed her true art was hidden behind the fear of not being accepted. When she stopped performing, she finally began to create. And let's not forget the professional caregiver who devoted her life to comforting others, but never allowed anyone to care for her. Her greatest act of courage was learning to receive, starting with her own love. These women are not fictional characters. They are mirror portraits of thousands of real-life journeys. The teacher who rediscovered her wisdom away from the classroom. The mother who, after years devoted to her children, relearned how to listen to her own desires. Each of these stories proves, when a woman allows herself time alone, she is not abandoning the world. She is finally meeting herself. And in that meeting, she discovers that everything she ever sought in others was waiting to be recognized within herself. The return to the source that never dried up. Here lies the mystery that defies logic. The more a woman dives into solitude, the more she connects with something greater than herself. The divine feminine is not found in distant temples. It lives in the silence between her thoughts, in the rhythm of her breath when no one is watching. This reconnection doesn't happen in grand ceremonies, but in simple gestures. In the way she prepares her tea, without haste, in the way she dances, alone in the living room, free from judgment. It's in these moments that the sacred reveals itself, not as dogma, but as presence. Society still tries to convince her that she needs to fill her emptiness. But the paradox is precisely this. It is in the emptiness that she finds her wholeness. When she stops seeking completeness outside, she discovers she has always been an entire universe, pulsing with her own cycles and mysteries. This journey transforms her relationship with time. What once was loneliness now becomes sacred space. What once seemed like isolation turns out to be the most fertile ground for blooming. At the end of this path, she understands. Reconnecting with the divine feminine was never about finding something lost. It was about remembering what was always there, waiting to be recognized. And in this reconnection, a new way of being in the world is born, not out of obligation, but out of conscious choice. The silent revolution that begins within. What all these women discovered was not just how to live alone, but how to be reborn in their own company. This is not a story about absence, but about presence, the most intimate and transformative kind there is. Every path walked reveals the same truth. Wholeness is not found in someone else, but in becoming someone. When a woman stops seeking in others what can only be found within, something magical happens. She becomes immune to loneliness, because she has learned the sacred art of being enough. This journey doesn't end here. In fact, it's just beginning. For many, the invitation is not to abandon relationships, but to never again abandon herself in the name of them. The world needs these whole women, not those who fit in, but those who expand. Not those who follow scripts, but those who write new chapters with their own ink. And you? Have you felt the call for this most important of conversations, the one that happens in the silence between you and yourself? When you're ready, solitude will be there, not as an enemy, but as the wisest of teachers. The choice, as always, will be yours alone.